let's get started on the pattern. The first thing to do before you put it together with sellotape, you need to check your test square. And I'm just putting this on, and if it's 2.5 in either direction, you can get started. Now, what I've noticed when I've printed it off in Adobe is that if you put the setting where it's landscape or portrait, if you put that on portrait, it actually shrinks it a tiny little bit. So go on to auto and then you can just print it off, and of course 100% or actual size. And the other thing I quickly want to repeat is that the pattern does not need seam allowance adding. It's already included in the pattern and it's 1 centimeter. So on your pattern, on some of the pieces, you will have these dashed lines, and they are attachment lines where we can put the pattern together. So have a look here. So you've got the attachment line, and this is how it goes together. If you try to put edges together right to the edge, it's really difficult. So if you have this little strip underneath it where it overlaps, it's much easier to put the pattern together. And that's why you have the attachment line. The last page is your assembly plan. And on this assembly plan, you can see how the pieces go together. And this plan is different for every size, because the smaller the size, the less paper I need. So I'm going to cut all this out now, and then we're going to put the pieces together. The one thing you will notice is that all the back pieces have got a pink flower on the pattern piece, and that makes it much easier to just see which goes with which. So what I tend to do is I make a neat little pile of pink flowers and white flowers, which is always the front. The rest of it doesn't have any flowers on it. It doesn't need it. There aren't that many pieces, and you know immediately they're neither front or back, right? And the bib, for example, has 2 pieces, so it's not necessary. So I'm going to cut this out, and I'll see you back in a tick. Welcome back. I've cut everything out, and I'm going to demonstrate how to put pieces together using the back piece. So I'm grabbing everything that has a pink flower on it. And we've got back leg A, back leg B. I'm going to just sellotape those together along the lines. You've got these little diamonds on there as well, which need to line up, and then you know that goes together. It's a good way of doing it, just in case you have something that isn't the right one. You know straight away, because that won't match up. Then now we're going to attach. Hang on, we have A, B, so we now need C and we need D. If you look at your little chart here, you can see C and D. So we'll put those together first. You can basically check back if you're not quite sure how this goes together. There we are. Just pop these on. I quite like it. It's like a little puzzle. And it certainly is way easier than all those lines. Oi, oi, oi. I have multi-size patterns for the ladies. It's somewhat more important to have all the sizes on one piece of paper, so you can slightly change the pattern as need be. With children's patterns, it really isn't that drastic. And most of the time, especially with my patterns, you don't need to make drastic changes. If it is a fitted garment, I offer it in a wide, a small, an extra small, so you are fine. For children, this is, I think, the easiest way to do it, and it's very beginner friendly, I think. So, right, I've gone down to E. Let's get this together as well. And then finally, oops, pull this over, and then finally I've got back leg F here. There we go. And that would be concluding my back pattern. So it's very simple to do this. We'll do the same with the front. We put A, B and C together, and because this is a children's pattern, there isn't so much to put together, because of course it's small sizes. So most of it actually after this does not need attaching. We have got the bib still to do. Then we can start explaining to you each one of these pattern pieces. See how quickly this goes together? It really doesn't take very long like this. I developed this method when I was teaching sewing courses, and if people bought a pattern, or I bought a pattern in, of course it was a multi-size, and I had like 10 people there. I didn't want to buy 10 patterns. So that's how my PDF patterns came about. So what I did then was do them like this, and people at the beginning of the lesson would say, I'll do the size 6 to 9 months, or I'll do the 2 to 3, or whatever it was, and I could just print that off, or the technical assistant would go and print it off, and then everybody could sit in their little space and cut it all out while they were having a cup of coffee and chatting away merrily, and everybody had enough space to put these things together as well. We are good to go. The first thing is with both of these, front and back actually, let's look at this both together. You have 3 different lengths. So you have the full length, that length I would do in the winter, or if you want to roll it up. And then you've got the ankle length, which is your spring, summer. And then of course you've got the shorts for when it's warm outside. And if you don't want to put the snap placket in, you cut out along this dashed line. And most pants, if you look at any pants, it has got a pretty steep curve here, and then it doesn't get so scooped in the front ever, because it just doesn't sit right. But for this pants you need to do it because of the snap placket that goes on here. So minus the seam allowance, if you look at that, that's really where the line becomes curved, and so to get the snap placket in, it had to be more scooped. So when you don't want that snap placket in, the last thing you want is a really big scoop in the front. It looks horrible. It doesn't fit very well then. It only fits if you do this. Okay, so what you do then is you cut along the first dashed line here. That is only on the front. The back is naturally always very scooped to go around the little bump, and so we can leave that as it is. So if you want to make this now without the snap placket, then you'd cut off along here. That's that one. Then this also has got pockets. The front has pockets. So you've got a pocket lining, which will go on here. And if you are doing the pocket, then you can cut this part away. There we go. But it's always good to have that in here, instead of just cut away, just in case you want to do something different, like no pocket or a different pocket, different shape, so you can redraw it easier. So you have got your pocket lining, and that goes on here, sewn on. I love this little corner here. I think that's really nice. Turn it around and it'll sit in here, and we do that in a really nice contrast fabric, like I did with my example in here. Look, you've got that being out. It's really nice. There we go. Anyway, that's what we want to do. So you've got the pocket lining in a contrast fabric, and then the actual pocket of course has to be done in denim, and so the denim goes right underneath this right there, and that's it. The other thing you might notice is we've got these hem points coming out, and that's because when you fold up the hem, right, you want the sides to marry up. You don't want that to be too tight. Let's say I'm doing the full length, and I can fold these over here. You don't need to cut these out, of course, because they only correspond to the size that you are making. So fold those over, and then the same here on the back. You can fold over or under the hem kicks. I can just fold those away for cutting out. On the back we have got a few extra pieces. Number one, we've got the back facing, which goes on here. It fits on exactly, apart from at this point here, we've got a 1 centimeter seam allowance on the center back in this area, and we don't need it. Of course we don't. It has to be cut on the fold, and the same as I did here, I would do it in a really lovely contrast, and the same will go for the bib. It's so, so cute. And then we also have a back patch pocket. Now, when you do your patch pocket later, you can fold over along these lines, create a template so that we can iron our pocket easier. Or you very neatly, once you've cut the pocket out and use that as your template. Whichever way you want to do this. And then you can use the gap that exists there to place your pocket and make sure it's in the right position. We also have these really cool extra pockets underneath it here. They're good for nothing, but they look cool. And they will sit right on here. Again, you've got that marked. The one thing you might notice is that the upper pocket has not got a dashed line for folding here. And that's because, watch this, when I put these pockets together, this one will simply slot into that one. The reason being for this is so that it's flatter down here. You don't need an extra layer to fold over, right? The less you have, the better. And then on this side, this will be folded over. And then we've got our perfect pocket, which fits in there. And this will go over the top. So those are the back pockets. The important thing here is to cut them out. You place them on the top of the fabric so that you have it only for the right hand side. That's where they go. They don't have to go anywhere else. Then we have got the bib for the front. And that has also a patch pocket on it, and you can use the same system. You can, once you cut out, you can cut out the pocket and use it as a template. And then once you've made your pocket, all you have to do is bam that on there, pin it in, and you have the perfect position for it. Now the bib also has the positions for your buttons and also for the buttonhole. Just remember that if you put this on the finished item, make sure that when you mark your buttonhole, you actually fold away the seam allowance so you don't accidentally put your buttonhole too far over to the side. Now, what I would really like to show you is the baby romper Bobby Dazzler front and back snap placket. It's the same for the front and the back. And it sits right on here. So if you go down 1 centimeter at the top, because that's a centimeter seam allowance, and this is on the fold, and then you will see that the end of it reaches in like 1 centimeter longer than your hemline will be. So it's a 1 centimeter seam allowance, and it does that again at the ankle length, and it does that again at the short length. And it does exactly the same on the back as well. And then to mark your snaps, you've got 3 different pattern pieces. So you only need to use the one that you're actually making. So in my case, that is the full length here for this pattern that I'm demonstrating. We've got the center front and the center back. And that sits 1 centimeter below here because we've got a centimeter seam allowance. We only put this on when we're finished, and you can see this sits exactly here on the edge. So now I can just put this onto the edge, and that will give me the perfect position for my cam snap. So cut out the little circles, and then all you have to do is go dot, 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 dot. And because you have them perfectly marked now, you don't have to worry about them going in the wrong position. So that's what these are for. And then we're just going to very quickly touch on the bit you've all been waiting for, no doubt, and that is your snap closure. Now I'm going to just put this behind so that you can see how this works. Right, and I need my bib. And then here we've got 1 centimeter less, of course, because you've got the seam allowance there. Okay, so it sits 1 centimeter below that. Now let's put this together how it would be. Here we've got the facing, and then we're going to grab the front placket, which is only serged at the bottom. there. There it would sit right like that, and that'll sit exactly opposite of the facing. And then we've got the back one, which has to be sewn across the top. So I'm just going to fold that in so that we can see it properly. And that'll sit on here at the same length again. And then we've got the seam allowance of 1 centimeter. This all lines up perfectly so that when it's finished, it gives you this look. So this here is that placket, and then you've got the front placket underneath it, and you've got the facing sitting beautiful on it as well. And here we've also got a little stitching line marked, and it's just to make it easier for you guys to do this, so that when we are sewing this all together, we sew down here, and instead of going straight down, we come out. And you can see it here. It's in the seam allowance. And that's it. So I look forward to cutting this out now with you, and I'll see you in the next chapter. If you are watching this via YouTube, then you want to find the playlist, which is linked below the video description, and join us in the next video where we're going to cut out the Bobby Dazzlers. See you there.